um, Hello, and welcome back to another video of Campaign Diaries, and just kind of going in again on the specifics of why me as a DM makes certain decisions and how that oh my god, I can't speak for anything. I'm trying to be a little less loose in the kind of, I guess, the first time I've made a not the first time. Some other times that I've made scripts and stuff, which I have, but I'm doing more like bullet points. So, but there will be some Elden Ring gameplay in the background, so that way I'm not really distracted by games, and I can really talk in depth since we're out of the intro and into the official session 0 of the campaign that we're currently going through. Right now, I believe session 6 happened on Monday, and it's very short. As I said, it's only 2 hours at a time, so not much has happened in the game. But doesn't really that doesn't really matter as long as everyone's having a good time. Um, I think we can all have a good time as well. But let's carry on. So, session 0 has come, and everyone started with their backstories. I had talked about last time that everyone was to think about their backstories and kind of decide what they wanted to do, and to really think about it during the week of how they would make their backstories. And I'd made it clear that whatever backstory they made would fit into the campaign that I've planned. And I did that because I do enjoy kind of improving some of the world, and I hadn't obviously completely fleshed out the world. Which, by the way, the world is the Feywild. We're gonna go straight into the Feywild, but I had mentioned that it's gonna be like the Feywild with a little bit of a Dark Souls-y twist. Uh, so I guess kind of like a fairy grimdark kind of thing. So I guess Elden Ring, or Dark Souls in general. So, but um, I was excited for them to see what they'd come up with their backstories. I had mentioned a couple other homebrew things for you know uh, the spells, or just kind of the way I run games and whatnot. I had them off the top of my head. Oh, permadeath. So instead of kind of worrying about like whether or not revivify spells would work or not, or what spells wouldn't, I made it clear that all spells were pretty much allowed. All revivification spells, or resurrection, raise dead, true resurrection, all those are kind of allowed. But the thing is, there are certain creatures in the world that are corrupted, uh, and they can kill you with uh, they can kill you if they bring you down to fail 3 death saves, and you just can't be resurrected because magic. Um, and I took that rule from another DM. I can't remember at the moment, but uh, I really liked it because I think it was like a good way to really stress like when something's really dangerous, and I feel like doing that kind of takes the uh, I guess it takes the kind of the easy mode of like, oh, we have a cleric we can revivify, which they have a druid, so they can true resurrection. I can't remember if druids can revivify, but I'm not even going to look it up. I'm blanking right now a lot because I'm concentrating on recording at the moment. So but moving on, I continued to kind of explain what I was making sure everyone understood. So, no evil characters, obviously, because I just don't trust newer players to deal with that good. And it's rarely been an issue. I've had my experienced players, which they're all DMs essentially, and they played evil characters, and I was totally fine with it. So uh, there is that. And I was like I mentioned, I was interested in seeing what people would make. But yeah, no evil characters. Obviously, no assholes or people who would like I'm a lone ranger kind of guy, or a lone rogue. The typical kind of backstory that a lot of people like to do, which I've done. I like playing that, but I think it's you know you're a lone guy who's like a roguish type, but has a heart of gold. Those are always fun. Uh, and I made sure to let them know that they have a week to kind of come up with their backstories, and we were going to walk through it then. So we did walk through it, and we had everyone kind of explain what their backstory was, which some people don't like because they want to keep it a secret. But for since this is like a really super fresh group, and they were my friends, I figured we were all pretty chill with just sharing what we had. So I asked anybody if they had any questions about the world. A couple people did, because one person was from the Autumn Court, which I guess I'm not going to get in depth about the world because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to just explain the reasonings behind, essentially. If you're interested in hearing about the world, let me know. But moving on. So we had the dwarf monk, as I mentioned, was from the Autumn Court. He had a very interesting backstory that kind of helped me define a major area that's going to be in the Autumn Court, where it's like a twisted tree that goes down deep underground, and something was released. So I really had a lot of fun with that, and coming up what would be like his monastery, what they were looking for down in that corrupted twirling tree or a spiral tree that went underneath. Sort of like Avatar. Not the Last Airbender, but the movie. I can't remember who the director was because I don't care about movies. But then we had a drow and a tiefling that were both from the Nine Hells for different reasons. The tiefling was there as a general who had like essentially didn't want to be in war. It was almost like the movie Edge of Tomorrow, where Tom Cruise is like kind of forced to be a soldier, even though he's high ranking technically, quote unquote. But he's forced to be a soldier essentially, and then he like escapes. There's no history repeats itself or anything, but the drow was very kind of iffy still. But as far as they know, they were just a drow that was being trained in hell for some reason. That's pretty much it. Which I was totally fine with. I'm not a stickler. I'm like, oh, you have to make a backstory. I actually have. I honestly don't care if people don't want to make a backstory. I have incentive for people who do want to make a backstory, which is if they give me a detailed backstory, I'll give them an uncommon magic item. They will roll randomly for it, but they'll get one. So usually people take to that and they make a backstory that's pretty detailed or just getting started. And I think it helps incentivize just making a backstory instead of like punishing. I always believe in D&D in general. Positive reinforcement, I would say, is probably a good thing to do. For the most part, there might be some times where it doesn't really work out that way and you're like, I need this now or something like that, just to be clear. And obviously over time players will develop their own backstories. They'll clean them up, they'll advance them, they'll have other players hopefully will talk to them, which they have, and they're still kind of getting used to that. But anyway, so we have both of those from the Nine Hells. The Dragonborn Paladin was a king from a realistic medieval setting, so there was like no magic and stuff, and then this dragon came and destroyed his kingdom, and his people turned against him, and he essentially got into the Feywild by being devoured by this dragon, which is a big deal for me because essentially that's like a dragon god that has the powers of like teleportation within its belly, and not only teleportation but traversing different planes, worlds, universes essentially. So that's like a lot for me to play with, which is really cool. I think he has probably one of the good ones, and him and the dwarf monk, I like them both. And the gnome druid was kind of isolated in a gnome village, essentially just by himself, and then kind of ran off. And I think he went the edgy kind of loner backstory, but he is essentially, he wants to hang out with this group because he's never seen any of these races before. So he's never seen, dragonborn, monk, a drow, and a tiefling, and so they were all pretty excited. We rolled, I think I mentioned last week, I think we did characters first just for mechanics base, and then we decided backstory later, because rolling for characters and explaining how skills and stuff like that works is pretty complicated to do like all in one go. So I always do it like one step at a time, where whenever something comes up I'll just kind of explain it then, so that way we're going at a slow pace, but it's slow and steady. Instead of just like speaking at them about the information of what what the skills are, which we play on roll 20, so it's very self-explanatory. They don't have to do any math. I just explain to them, there's macros. You just need to find the boxes, the appropriate boxes that have like the headings of like what they are, so skills, saving throws, initiative, HP, and they just have to remember where that stuff is, and once they have that stuff added, they can just click on it and it's macroed, which I think is fantastic. I think it's great. I like using Roll20. I've always used it. Yeah. So I did mention what kind of world we were gonna be, going into. I mentioned the Feywild and how it's mostly going to take place there, and also what kind of DM I am. I've been DMing for 3 years. I think I mentioned that last video, which in comparison to a lot of other DMs, isn't a long time, and a lot of that time was just me learning, and I'm still learning. But I like to do more combat heavy scenarios, and I like to make combat more difficult. And I always, every single monster I go in there, that I throw in there that they fight, is always a homebrewed version of whatever that monster is. Whether I add like an ability on the spot, right before they encounter it, or, something unique that just comes to me, or I get inspired by someone else's idea that I see either on Reddit, on YouTube, on a podcast that I've listened to. And so that's pretty much, I think that's pretty much it for session 0. Yeah, just more difficult. That they were like, okay, cool, and I had a couple of them before do a one shot just to try D&D, and they really enjoyed it, and the combat was like very difficult then, and I think I've gotten really good at kind of figuring out what is difficult for combat wise, because it's once you figure out how your players, like once the action economy, how it kind of works, every player gets an action, bonus action, reaction. And then, if they want to do some shenanigans, depending on what it is, you can keep a mixture of those. But they always can do 3 things. And obviously the free object interaction, which is like a very minuscule thing that a lot of players like forget they can take advantage of and can do some pretty big moves. Well, obviously it's depending on the DM, but it depends. But there's that 4th little free object interaction. So essentially 3 things, the 3 main things. And multiple enemies are always going to be more difficult than a singular creature. But if the singular creature has like certain skills or things like that it can hide better in the jungle or in the woods, what have you, it has like hypnotizing powers, who knows, and obviously how much HP it has in comparison. So it depends on how, essentially you're just kind of guesstimating, as I would call it, on how long it would last. Or your players could roll very poorly and it could just kill them. So there's always that fine line. I think that's pretty much it. I was going to say something, but I have a hard time finishing my sentences because I always get off track. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on session 1, on how it went and things like that. And I haven't recorded any of our sessions yet, just because I really just want to go into the detail of like what decisions went where and why. But yeah, we went over all that stuff, all the rules, all the how stuff works, and how I explained, like when we get to combat, I would explain combat, which I did. But for now, we just made it. I made it as simple as possible. We ended up working on the backstories. Everybody got theirs done, and we were excited to start. So, but anyways, I think that's it from my part. Not much for session 0, but again, it was just mostly talking and helping people make their backstories, and if they had any questions about the world, which I can't think about anyone having a significant question other than the monk dwarf, who like wanted to know about the Autumn Court a little bit, which kind of helped me determine a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think that's it. So anyways, I appreciate you guys listening to the video, and if you guys enjoy it, then listen to the next one, and leave any questions in the comments if you have any, or if you'd like to hear me speak about something more specific, or anything like that. So anyways, guys, thank you, and see you guys later.